Today at Culture Talk, we have philosopher and theologian Ken Samples with us, and he's also, Ken, an avid book reader. So we're both fellow bibliophiles, and one of the things that we love to talk about is our love of books. And a big question that Christians might ask is, should we even read books besides the Bible or besides Christian books? So what is your take on that?
Yeah, well, of course, the Bible should be our primary book. We're people of the book, but only human beings read. And I would argue that that endowment called the image of God means that we're able to hunt and gather truth. So reading other books, discovering truth is, I think, a wonderful part of being made in the image of God.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think we always talk about the different types of books that we read and the different genres.
Right.
What would be the benefit in reading books and works of fiction, and how will that make me better able to share my faith?
Yeah, you know, C.S. Lewis, who is one of the great storytellers, talks about combining the Christian message with imagination. And when we can read books of fiction, when we can read books in literature, this give us a lot of opportunities to co-join Christian truths with other ideas. So reading gives us ideas. It helps us to understand what people out there believe, how we can relate our faith to where people are in terms of worldview ideas. So I think reading is the natural thing for a Christian, and it can only help us be more successful in sharing our faith.
Very good. So then would you recommend some of the books that we might pick up would be of different faiths, and would you recommend that we pick up books of different beliefs and different philosophies even?
Of course, we have to be discerning and reflective. We always have to be on guard because the Bible talks about false beliefs. But I've written a book where I talk about the Christian faith, looking at Buddhism, looking at Hinduism, Confucianism. I think a Christian today needs to be familiar with the great world religions and be able to compare and contrast their faith with those religions. Something
that you shared with me was kind of like this bracket of Christian classics.
Yeah.
I was pretty fascinated by it and disappointed that as an avid reader, I hadn't read many of those books. But have you read all of those books?
I haven't read all of them. I've read many of them. And it slows down. When you read a classic book, it slows your reading down because there's so much there. I mean, Mortimer Adler, one of the great advocates of reading great books, says a great book is a book you can never exhaust. You never get to the end of it. So that's a whole list of books that was in the 64 greatest Christian books.
And what was the top book?
Well, I have to confess, I wasn't surprised. It was St. Augustine's book, Confessions, which I've read twice a year for the last 25 years. So it's a wonderful book.
Twice a year,
yeah.
Okay.
Great book.
So are there any other authors that you would recommend besides Augustine?
Yeah.
Anyone else you would recommend?
Well, I think C.S. Lewis, Francis Schaeffer do a very good job looking at culture and ideas. I think Tim Keller is very good today at looking at cultural ideas. So, but you can never be disappointed by reading some of the standard classic Christian books that have stood the test of time, and the Confessions would be right at the top.
And what about non-Christian authors? Are there any that you would recommend as giving a fair representation of their perspective?
I think there are a good number of them. There are people out there that I would always read somebody who I think is fair-minded, who's careful, who looks at both sides. As Christians, we can learn from non-Christians. They're made in the image of God. They derive general revelation. So Christians should be eager to learn from anybody and everybody, including people that we don't share the same faith with.
Well, thank you for that, Ken. Now, one last question. I've been trying every year to beat your reading challenge. How many books have you read this year?
Well, I try to read 2 a week, so at the end of the year, it'll give me 100. I think right now I'm about 106 or 107.
Oh, I'm at 105. So close. We'll try. Well, thanks again, Ken.
Thank you.
And if you want to learn more from Ken, just check on reasons.org and keyword search reflections to check out his blog.